All right, welcome into the B Block Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Scott. I appreciate you for being here on this. What do we call it? Can we call it a happy NFL league tampering, official league tampering day? Is that how we want to refer to it? I'm not really sure what the exact term is, but it is the start of free agency essentially. Of course, we know they can't officially sign until Wednesday, but as of 11 o'clock this morning Central Time, started to see some action, a lot of action. Okay, and it's been an NFL free agent frenzy. I know for a lot of Texans fans, it's caused a little bit of stress not seeing the Texans be really that active or part of the major headlines, all the major activity. Of course, the Texans have taken the strategy so far of just mostly bringing back their own guys. That is the headline. Like there isn't a new player that has been acquired, roughly 6 hours into the legal tampering period that is worth noting. Like what would y'all say up until this point is the biggest Texans free agency / off-season headline up until this point in terms of contracts and player acquisitions, or even trades, if you will? I would say, well, like, what would you say? The David Montgomery trade, bringing in David Montgomery until they replace Titus Howard, until they get an offensive lineman on this team that wasn't on the team last year that replaces Titus Howard effectively, then I can't even say that that's the move. And I'm pretty optimistic that there's going to be a move like that at some point. We'll see how satisfied people are with it. But would y'all say that's the big move, the big acquisition so far? Y'all let me know. I think it's probably acquiring David Montgomery. The biggest acquisition. And that's where we are at this point. I would imagine the big news for a lot of people, though, is Ed Ingram. We woke up to this news this morning. I was doing Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 this morning with Seth Payne, and we were glad to wake up to the news. We had plenty of news, plenty of activity from over the weekend, but we were glad to wake up to the news that Ed Ingram was back. That checks off one box. We talked last week about there being 4 openings on the offensive line that were created by trading Titus Howard. You bring Ed Ingram back, you bring Trent Brown back before that, and you at least feel like you've got 2 guys that can start for you. And in the case of Ed Ingram, it's a 3-year, $37.5 million deal, if I'm correct. I can pull it back up. But yeah, 3-year, $37.5 million deal to keep Ed Ingram around. So that I mean, that's starter money. If you're paying somebody $37.5 million, it includes $20 million fully guaranteed at signing. That's according to Aaron Wilson of KPRC. Want to make sure I shout that out because he's the first person that I saw with the actual contract details. Ian Rappaport had the story first this morning that the Texans were bringing Ed Ingram back. I saw Aaron Wilson with the contract details on what exactly this is. So $20 million. $37.5 million overall, $20 million guaranteed. Ed Ingram is going to be more than likely your starting right guard unless they draft a rookie that just, or find some kind of diamond in the rough that just knocks your socks off type of thing. But I don't anticipate that happening. So you've got your right guard, you've got your left tackle, you've got an option at right tackle in Trent Brown, which we talked about. And then at center, there is where the big piece of nervousness I feel like has come up today. And I'll speak for myself in terms of like just having felt it personally and seeing the figures and what the centers that I had in mind actually got. One was way out of the price range that I was expecting or would have been, I don't want to say willing to pay, because I figure if they're willing to pay it, then they're willing to figure out the responsible way to do it and how to make the money work. So honestly, if the Texans had paid Tyler Linderbaum the $80 million that he's getting from the Raiders, and I think that is correct, right? Let's make sure we get the because this really set people off. They were like, "Man, we wanted some Tyler Linderbaum, but never mind at that at those prices in this economy, you can have a damn Tyler Linderbaum." So 3 years, $81 million includes $60 million guaranteed. It makes him the highest paid interior offensive lineman in NFL history per Adam Schefter. So look, a lot of people are out on that deal. Said, man, look, I'm glad the Texans weren't shopping on that aisle. I don't think I would have really minded it as much, honestly, considering the need at the position and how strong he is at the position. But I did understand, like, I can be reasonable and say, hey, well, maybe you don't want to pay your center tackle money and figured that you can use that money to get yourself a center and a guard, since you do in fact need both, and you've already spent a little bit of money on bringing back Ed Ingram as well. So I would have been perfectly fine with doing this. I definitely understand not doing it, and I'm not upset that the Texans didn't end up with Tyler Linderbaum for $81 million and $60 million guaranteed. That being said, did y'all see what Cade Mays, the former Panthers center, went for the Detroit Lions? Did y'all see what they signed him for? Because this was the one that hit him where it hurt, if you will. This was the one that was a really tough pill to swallow because it felt like the aisle that the Texans would be shopping in. At least I thought. You know, you saw the reports last week. I think it was Aaron Wilson who had this as well over at KPRC, that the Texans at least were showing some interest in Cade Mays, the center who again played for the Carolina Panthers and is now headed to the Lions on a 3-year, $25 million deal with $14 million guaranteed. Now we talking. Now we talking, right? You go ahead and get your center for a cheaper price than you were going to get your right guard. Cade Mays, which makes sense. Guards make more than centers usually, but of course, we're talking about Tyler Linderbaum making $80 million. Like, you could go get a competent, real starting center for 3 years, 25 million, 14 million guaranteed. Ooh, that's a rough one. That is a tough pill to swallow, that the Lions, who appear to always get the offensive line stuff correct, were able to nab this guy. And the Texans, who, let's just be real about it, rarely get the offensive line right. They get it right in spaces, right? An offensive lineman here, offensive lineman there, but can't put together a full offensive line to save their lives, it seems. Couldn't go get this guy for 3 years, 25 million and 14 million guaranteed. I'm not acting like it's the end of the world. I'm not losing my mind. I saw John Crumpler, noted Texans writer and doctor. Let me know, Crumpler, if I got to call you Dr. Crumpler now, or if you're one of those types of doctors. But he's a medical doctor, so legit shout out to him in that way. But he was saying that everybody, like, if you're losing your mind just a few hours into the legal tampering period, not even full-fledged free agency, then you need to go outside, take a walk, take a breath, relax, come back later in the week, see how you feel about where the team is by the end of the week. Don't let this day get to you more than it needs to get to you, was essentially his message. And I'm with that. I even waited a little bit before I went live so I can kind of digest everything, make sure I didn't miss any breaking news that might be relevant to the stream and all of that. But I'm not losing my mind over this thing. There is plenty to be done. Guys are going to get released. Guys are going to get traded. There are guys that are going to be available by the end of the week and probably signed or traded to teams by the end of the week that we didn't even realize was available, that were not free agents, that maybe the Texans didn't even realize were available until they were. And that's part of the process. That's going to happen. However, when you sit here and look at what Cade Mays went for, and trusting the reporting that's out there that there was interest in signing him, it would have been nice to have come on this stream or to have ended the day feeling like between the Ed Ingram signing and the Cade Mays signing, you at least solve the 2/3 problem that exists on the interior offensive line. I talked about this with Seth on the show of like, whatever they do at tackle, it feels like they have at least earned some trust with how they approach the tackle position, right? They got Ariante Ursery. They brought back Trent Brown. And even in the Titus Howard days, they either had Titus Howard over there playing a solid right tackle, or when they had to bump him inside, they had a solid backup swing tackle or another right tackle that they could put out there, whether it was George Fant or if it was Trent Brown in this case, last season. It seems like they've been able to at least piece together, and I would say even better than that, to give Fant and Brown their proper credit. And I thought Titus Howard, when he played right tackle, was fine there too. They've been able to do better than just piece together a tackle play. Obviously, Laramie Tunsil was over there for years. Ariante Ursery's over there now. Not really worried about the tackles, even though I'm worried about the idea of relying on Trent Brown to start a majority of games for you or to be your plan A at right tackle. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. They probably end up drafting one, but that would worry me if they don't bring in a right tackle at all to at least compete or to be trained to be the right tackle of the future. But I think they'll do that. I'm just not as much worried about either the evaluation or the plan or whatever it is that they end up doing at that position. I am worried about guard to guard, left to right to left, however you want to look at it. Now I guess that's just now guard and center since they brought back Ed Ingram. But the center position is a precious one, and it's one that is like an underrated part of this whole CJ Stroud experience, right? CJ Stroud has not played with a bona fide starting caliber center probably his entire career. Am I tripping on that? Scott Quesenberry was hurt early in his career. You had Michael Dieter out there, who's a career backup for the most part. You've had Drew Scruggs take some stabs at it. I feel like maybe Jared Patterson is taking some stabs at it. And of course, last year you had Jake Andrews, who gave you a great effort and seems to be about all the right stuff. But if we're talking about from a talent and just ability standpoint, it's been underwhelming at best at the center position since CJ Stroud got here. Now, they've changed the offense to be more from a communication standpoint, to be more of kind of a quarterback centric one, right? But the communication between the center and the quarterback is important in any system. And we saw the center position actually be an issue in the playoffs with some of the bad snaps and the fumbles that CJ Stroud had, right there late in the season in the playoffs. And so, this is something, and this is not like just, to crap on Jake Andrews. It's just to point out that you got an opportunity here to really do something different and to find a difference maker at that position. And you need not waste it. You need not squander it. You need not bypass opportunities to get one if you can for around about $25 million, for around about $14 million guaranteed. I'm again not into the world, not losing my mind about it, but got a little bit of FOMO watching Cade Mays go to the Lions, a team that's already that I already trust to get its offensive line right, and the Texans miss out on that. So who knows? Maybe they end up trading for somebody. Maybe somebody ends up getting released and wasn't a free agent, when we started this thing and became one. But it's still too early to panic, and we're dealing with kind of these dueling thoughts here, because while it's too early to panic or too early to overreact to what they're either doing or not doing, it's also really difficult to trust the process, to trust the evaluation, to trust their ultimate landing spot with this because of what you've seen over the years. So I think both things are actually true. You don't have to lose your mind about them not signing whoever they don't sign or haven't signed, but you also don't have to just like blindly believe that just because there are more days left that they're going to actually get this thing done. Saw that Connor McGovern, who I don't think the Texans were ever going to be in the market for, but before this whole thing even started over the weekend, he went back to the Buffalo Bills. It's like, somebody who I also thought that the Texans might want to be at least checking in on if he's available. And that didn't happen. Connor McGovern's deal ended up being, what did he get? It was a 4-year deal, $32 million guaranteed, $52 million overall, $32 million guaranteed. So that's $30 million, almost $30 million less than what Tyler Linderbaum would have gone for if you could have got him. They didn't. So look, there can be FOMO, but I also think that part of it is not just FOMO, but there is an angst and uneasiness about the process and whether the folks in charge can actually nail this thing. Whether it's a matter of swinging and missing or not taking the proper swings at all, taking too many pitches and not taking the right swings at all, whatever the case may be. It does feel like they're vulnerable to that. So it's my thoughts on not getting a center yet and the centers that are off the board. I do want to point out, though, since we're on the offensive line, that it does appear that my number one target, my number one priority is still available. So I need not be losing my mind. I need not. Isaac Siamalu, as far as I can tell, is still a free agent, still out there, still can be had. If I get that notification, and I'll be damned if it happens while I'm on this stream, but if I get that notification from one of the national insiders or from anybody that Isaac Siamalu is, either headed back to the Steelers or is signed with X team that is not the Texans, then I'm gonna start to have a little bit more FOMO. It's gonna be a little bit more FOMO associated with that for me. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I feel like that should be a gettable type of player. And for me, you could argue that center is the biggest need, but I think it's really left guard, because if you get a good left guard, I think you can live with Jake Andrews if that's what it ends up being. But left guard is just the sore spot. Y'all let me know if y'all agree with that. But left guard is just the sore spot where they haven't had enough guys. I'm sorry. Let me try it again. Where they haven't had no guys. They haven't had no left guard to speak of in a minute. So this is them still trying to make right the what they were trying to accomplish with the Kenyon Green pick going on 4 years ago now. And sure, that can be water under the bridge, but they are still trying to address that position. To me, it feels the most desperate. So Isaac Siamalu is somebody that, as of this taping, as of this live, is still available, and somebody that I'm hoping that the Texans end up with. Now, focusing a little bit on some of the players that they brought back, we talked about the offensive lineman, Ed Ingram, Trent Brown, both guys who excel in the run game, and we know that that's what the Texans want to be about, what they claim they want to be about. That's what they claimed they wanted to be about last year and couldn't fully be about it the way that they wanted to. But once they kind of started getting things together a little bit with Trent Brown and Ed Ingram on one side, Titus Howard playing at least credible left guard for you. Ariante Ursery is young, but he's a dog. Jake Andrews, I think, is limited talent wise, but he got some dog in him. He's at least willing. Things kind of started to look a little bit better, despite the fact that they finished with the worst run block win rate of any team. They still kind of got after it, and Ed Ingram I thought was a big part of that. Struggles in pass protection. You'll hear Seth Payne talk about this. He talked about it on the show today. I'm sure he's talked about it on his YouTube as well. But pass protection not ideal, okay? But you can live with. There are ways around the pass protection issues if they can scheme it up and coach it up. That's what Cole Popovich as the offensive line coach and Nick Caley as the offensive coordinator, that's going to be a part of their job, to play to their players' strengths and to sort of mask their players' weaknesses as they come up. So Ed Ingram a good signing. Trent Brown a good signing, so long as it's not their plan A at right tackle. And I suspect if you look at all the mocks and just kind of read the conversation and the chatter and really what's going to be available to the Texans late in the first round at pick 28, and even possibly if they were to trade back, whether that's one of those later first round picks or even into the second round, which is would be more likely, I guess, would be trading out of the first round entirely. But no matter what they do, it seems like there'll be a tackle available, a credible tackle available to them, worth taking, worth at least kicking the tires on. So cool with Trent Brown, given that it's a limited role. Like the Ed Ingram signing, especially at the clip. I know a lot of us thought that he was going to get a little bit more than what he ended up getting. I thought that was more than reasonable what they ended up paying him. Some people think it's an overpay. Look, you got to pay guys, man. You got to pay guys. Once they have a decent season and they're a free agent and it's a supply and demand situation, and you are offensive line, you are a franchise with an offensive line that ain't been worth a damn in years. You can't be up here. Maybe $80 million for a center is too rich for your blood, but a dude go out there and give you credible right guard play, you can cough up the 37, the 37.5 million, or the 20 million guaranteed. It's worth that to you. I think it's worth that to you. So there's that. Senior Buble, and shout out to you for being in the chat and for all the support as always. Asked if I think an an offensive line splash via trade, is still possible. Absolutely. That's what I'm saying, to hold out hope for and to hold out some belief for, because and I've been saying this since the very beginning, well before free agency started, was watch out for the trade market. Nick Caserio loves the trade market just as much, if not more, than he loves free agency. Finding where that's what all of the pick accumulation that he does and all of the wheeling dealing that he does with picks, that's what it's there for. That's what an extra fourth or an extra fifth or an extra sixth or seventh, that's what they are there for. Not to necessarily draft a bunch of players, especially when you already have a young nucleus and have proven over the last few years that you're right there knocking on the door. You don't need to hoard these picks to actually pick players. You don't need to overly value the the depth of the draft and young players. And they're going to draft players to be sure, but you can also use some of those picks to maneuver and forfeit the right to draft a dude in the 5th, 6th round to go fortify your offensive line. So to answer your question, Senior Buble, just succinctly, I think that an offensive line splash via trade is still possible. I definitely do think that. Also says if they don't sign Trent Williams, I think they have to go that route. Now, this is interesting. Thank you for bringing this up, the Trent Williams thing. I'm still holding out hope for that as well. And I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what the right number is, but I just know that not having to give up the draft capital that you would normally have to give up for a player that caliber, because he's, 39 years old, close to 40 years old at this point. Like, you're going to get him at some kind of discount, and it's more of a win now move to begin with. So I don't know what an extension looks like. I don't know. I don't know what the future would look like with Trent Williams beyond, let's say, like this year and the next. I would only think about it in those terms. Like, can I get 2 good years out of Trent Williams? And I would bet on it. I honestly would. This is something that I would be excited about. Just comes down to a question of, is Ariante Ursery ready to move over to the right side? And what can you do at left guard? Because you at left guard or center, because you still, like, I don't think that you can just acquire Trent Williams and then just say, okay, we're gonna piece it together at center and guard, at center and left guard. We got Ed Ingram. At least we got a good guard or a good interior offensive lineman. Nah, bruh. Nah. And in some ways that might make Trent Williams a luxury item. I would like the luxury of just having him, especially if you're talking about the type of offense you want to be, is a mauling, badass, just in your face, swarm mentality they like to talk about. You want that? Bring on Trent Williams. I'm with it. But it can't be at the expense of getting a credible left guard and or center in the building. That's where I'm at on it. Senior Buble says that I think there has to be a show of force at correcting the offensive line, even if said player were to not work out. Yeah, look, I know we're going to play the results on this, and if the guys don't work out and if the offensive line is still bad, we're not letting nobody off the hook for that. Still going to hold them accountable. But they do have to take these swings to the point that you're making here. They still got to take the swings. And I want to be clear again. I am not here arguing or making the case that they have not taken these swings or attempted to take these swings just because they haven't landed with anybody to speak of that wasn't already on the team. Not saying that. But I am saying they got to take these swings. These swings got to get took. Point blank, period. Got a little bit of news that came down just in the last few minutes since we've been on live. The Seahawks are signing their own free agent. They're doing a Texans thing here where they're signing their own free agent, wide receiver, Rashid Shaheed. This was sort of a speed threat potentially that I think some Texans fans at least were hoping the Texans might be in on. But he is returning to the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. It is, according to Ian Rappaport, a 3-year deal worth $51 million. So if you had your eyes or your sights set on Rashid Shaheed, you can forget about it. Looks like we've got Adam Schefter, who reports that the 3-year, $51 million deal includes 34.7 million guaranteed for Rashid Shaheed. So y'all let me know if that was too rich for your blood. I'm all about adding weapons and adding speed. So I'm not really blinking at that as much. I get it though. If you're like, I'm good. Let's get Tank Dell back and draft a weapon and see if we can't do better between running the football, addressing the offensive line, CJ Stroud getting back on track and all of that. Year 2 of Nick Caley, more comfortable, seemed to be improving as a play caller as the season went on, that type of stuff. If you want to look at it that way, I'm with that. But I'm also very, very cool with spending money for speed. It's the thing I talk about with this team that they don't have nearly enough of. The thing that I yearn for. To watch the Texans have is a little speed out there, man. So, no Rashid Shaheed. Sheldon Rankins is coming back. I think that is an underrated move for the Texans in terms of keeping this defense at the level that it was, giving them the best shot, I should say, giving this defense the best shot at maintaining the level that it was. I think even more so than extending Danielle Hunter, which I think was just both a reward for Daniil Hunter, but also like cap maneuvering type of stuff. Give him more money up front, lower his salary. Let's make some stuff work. Maybe look at it as sort of amounting to a restructure, but giving a guy money in this case that has either earned it or is going to make good on whatever you give him. But Sheldon Rankins, as a free agent, is somebody that they actually could have lost this offseason the way they did 2 off seasons ago had they not paid him. I think would have created, again, an underrated void in that defense, on that defensive line specifically, that would have been difficult to replace. And I thought it was difficult to replace the year that he left. And I think it would have been difficult to replace had they not signed him. Ultimate leader, consummate professional, and still a hell of a, like, it's not just the intangible stuff, still a hell of a ball player. Like a good football player, legitimately good football player. Not just the intangible rah-rah stuff, but a good football player who everybody to a man on the team respects. When he speaks, everybody listens. And I think that's a team-wide thing, specifically on the defense, but it's a team-wide thing where everybody in the building respects the guy and appreciates his somewhat unheralded contribution. So, love them bringing back Sheldon Rankins. I think this is the part, though, where folks are like, hey, man, I don't think our best moves need to be bringing back Sheldon Rankins. With all due respect, $12 million guaranteed for a 2-year deal to bring Sheldon Rankins back to Houston. I'm all for it. Love him as a player, love him as a leader. Always good to deal with from a media standpoint. I'm all for it. So you're looking at an interior defensive line, I think, that's going to prominently feature Sheldon Rankins and Tommy Togiai, who was a revelation for them last year. And even to some degree, maybe even before that, but certainly last year kind of had his breakout moment, maybe a breakout season. I might be overstating it a little bit, but we saw enough from him to feel like he could be, one of your top defensive tackles within a rotation. And I think it made Tim Settle a little bit expendable, or expendable is not the right word, because I think Tim Settle played his way out of the Texans market, right? Like they were never going to be able to, especially given that they had Tommy Togiai locked up and in tow, to expect him to be able to bring back both Sheldon Rankins and Tim Settle would have been a little bit too much. And Tim Settle ends up with the Commanders, the team that drafted him. So he's back in Washington. But that I think makes sense that they wouldn't be able to keep both of those guys, and that out of the two, they would pick the one who is both still a good player and has that leadership component that is specific to that guy in Sheldon Rankins. So appreciate Tim Settle, and a real fun dude to cover, to be around, to talk to, and to watch play. Fun watching him develop into a type of player that could get this contract that he's getting from Washington. But ultimately, I think Sheldon Rankins, for as long as he's still a good football player, just makes more sense for the Texans. So y'all let me know how y'all feel about the Texans losing out on Tim Settle. It looks like his deal with Washington is worth $24 million with a maximum value of $25.5 million. So shout out to him, man. Shout out to him for getting paid. It looks like Aaron Wilson had this as well. $25.5 million. Doesn't look like, I'm not seeing the guarantee, but either way, man, that's really good for him. So good for him, good for Sheldon Rankins, and good for the Texans in bringing him back. I talked about this on the radio as well. The Dalton Schultz extension was also fine with. I'm fine with everything that the Texans have done. I think I'm understanding of everybody that's got some angst about what they have not done. Just not panicking just yet. But bringing back Dalton Schultz was, well, they were always bringing him back, but extending him for another year, I was fine with. My big thing with the Texans in the tight end position is not about Dalton Schultz. I was expecting him to be back, and I figured that he was a prime candidate for an extension given the year that he just had, best year that he's had in the 3 years that he's been here. But at least in terms of catches and yards, I think he might have had more touchdowns that CJ rookie year, which was his first year, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, this was in totality overall. I mean, they were scoring more touchdowns back then. Overall, this was his best season since he's been with the Texans. I don't have no qualms with that. My thing with the tight end position is what y'all doing? What y'all doing beyond Dalton Schultz? You got a former tight ends coach that's calling the offense, that's running the offense, designing and calling the offense. You got a Patriot style offense that requires you to be able to run the ball. You have stated publicly that this is the type of team that you want to be. And then also, in terms of pass catching, the best versions of the Patriots offense either had one or two things. A hell of a deep threat like a Randy Moss, which good luck finding that. Or multiple tight ends that they could rely on to get the ball to. And I'm not saying that Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez are just growing on trees, that you can just go to a factory and just go get one of those guys. But I do feel like tight end needs to be a priority this offseason, whether it's this week and then the coming days in free agency, trade, or if it's in the draft. But you're going to have to do more at the tight end position than Kay Stover, Brevin Jordan, bless his heart, Harrison Bryant, just kind of piecing it together along the margins. Like, you're going to have to go out and get you at some point a real dynamic tight end aside from Dalton Schultz to really unlock this offense, I think. Or I think that would help. I think that would help. It's not the only thing, right? They get a deep threat. All of a sudden, you're going to see more deep shots, right? If they fix this offensive line, I think David Montgomery is going to have his way with it. But you make Dalton Schultz just one of your good tight ends instead of like your clear and obvious $12 million a year, whatever it is, $1 million a year tight end. I think you're a little bit more serious of an operation. And I want to see them do that. I framed it on Sports Radio 610 this morning as Dalton Schultz needs a running mate. He needs a tight end running mate, somebody that can get on his level. And I think a lot of us have high hopes for Cade Stover, like what he's about, what he represents. He's obviously got that relationship with C.J. Stroud going back to Ohio State. But it was underwhelming what you got from him in all facets. Underwhelming what you got from him this year. And I don't think you can just now rely on that with him going into year 3, just rely on him kind of taking that step or getting over that hump, if you will. He might just be, and I don't say this is no shade, but I'm just kind of being real about it. He might just kind of be a marginal player, a dude that you can use, but not necessarily a dude that you're relying on as, man, this is my other tight end. Well, this is a tight end that can make the team or could come in and help us, but I feel like they need to do more. They either need to do more, or you're gonna have to get a lot more from Cade Stover or whatever it is that they think they got going at that position. But Dalton Schultz alone ain't it. I don't believe that. Senior Buble makes a really good parallel here. He says that Rankins is the Dylan Brooks, Fred Van Vliet for the Texans. I'm with that. I can see that. Obviously not a perfect, apples to apples comparison, different sports, one single player just means so much more to a basketball team than I think one single player that's not a quarterback. Yeah, and that's not a quarterback or doesn't touch the ball. I think way more than that player can mean, a basketball player in that sense. But the spirit of that I'm with. The spirit of that I'm with. He is culture setter, but also productive. Not just like over there on the bench barking at dudes and trying to big bro everybody, but out there in the trenches with them, but then also enough pelts on the wall and has played in the system even before D'Amico got there. Played with the Jets under Saleh, I'm pretty sure. But again, just really a leader that I think everybody leans on. Senor Buble, you also iffy on Schultz, but you understand it because he was productive. Yeah, yeah. This is one that I feel like you can do with or without. Like it's not one to cry about. Now, if he falls off a cliff, we can come back to this conversation and be like, what was going on there? But I'm not anticipating any kind of significant drop off. And I even expect that he could maintain this level of production. So I'm good with it. My biggest thing again is just that it can't just be Dalton Schultz. And then everybody else in that room is either injured or not very good. Like it can't just be Dalton Schultz going into his age 30 season, which again, I think in his age 30 season, he should still be relatively good, but they need more. They need more people, not just on the offensive line, but also in that tight end room. Coach Reggie says that Nick doesn't want to spend big money. He is penny pinching. Let me try that again. Coach Reggie says that Nick doesn't want to spend big money. He is penny pinching this team together. It certainly felt that way last year that they were going to try to nickel and dime their way to an offensive line, even though, again, I always point out they did give $12 or $14 million or something like that to Cam Robinson. But I think you look at it here, man, they've given Trent Brown a raise double the amount of money. They're giving Ed Ingram $37.5 million and $20 million guaranteed. There's money there. There's money to spend. It's the evaluate. Like, are they like are would they be of the position? This is me throwing out a hypothetical here. I want to be clear about this. But would they be of the position that say like a Cade Mays wasn't worth $25 million? Because I don't think you can blame them for saying, you know what, 81 million for one player that's not a tackle, edge rusher, or a quarterback, or like a bona fide receiver or something like that. That's just a little rich for our blood. We can't really do that for a center. We feel like we can find a good center for way less than that. And it turns out they theoretically could have. They theoretically still can. Back to sort of the original point here. They still can. We ain't got to lose our minds. We ain't got to freak out. But I do think we should hold them accountable for how this offseason plays out. Free agency, trade, draft. They cannot. I do not think it's a viable option to get to OTAs and the projected starting five on the offensive line is from left to right, Ariante Ursery, Jared Patterson, Jake Andrews, Ed Ingram, and a rookie or Trent Brown. Can't do it. Can't be it. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to like whatever it is that they do. And it doesn't mean that whatever it is that they do is going to work, even as we sit here and demand that they do something. Something. Doesn't mean we're going to like it. Doesn't mean it's going to work. But to be clear, They must do something. Like my guy John Crumpler said, Dr. Crumpler said, take a walk, take a breath, relax for a little bit, but come back Friday and see what the team looks like. Come back Friday and see what the offensive line looks like. It can't look like this. I want to be clear about that. I like Ed Ingram. I like Trent Brown. I respect the effort of Jake Andrews. I think a lot of people crap on him because he's not great, but I respect what he's about. I think Ariante Ursary is going to be a really good pro. They need a left guard. They need a center. Point blank, period. Trade for him. Sign him. Getting them in the draft, I feel like is an option, but would be really disappointing given what's out there in terms of proven talent. Like my guy Isaac Seumalo. Let me check the news one more time to make sure I haven't missed somebody signing Isaac Seumalo. Oh, Roy Lopez got a deal. Roy Lopez is going back to the Cardinals for 2 years, $11.5 million with $7 million guaranteed. Good for Roy Lopez. Oh, no. Right before that, 5 minutes ago, Isaac Seumalo headed to the Arizona Cardinals. It's a 3-year, $31.5 million deal for Isaac Seumalo. So we miss out. All right. The Texans miss out on my top free agent target. I was getting ready to get out of here, man. And the Texans have now missed out on the guy that was my top free agent target because I thought it was realistic. I thought it was easy. And I thought it very plainly addressed and clearly addressed a position of need. Just flat out. Isaac Seumalo, 3 years, $31.5 million. I don't know the guarantees. I don't really care. I would have done this deal. I mean, that's a little over the, $10 million a year. I don't know no other way to put it. From Next Gen Stats, Isaac Seumalo allowed a 3.7 pressure rate in 2025, the lowest among all guards with at least 250 pass blocks. The lowest among all guards. Only 3 offensive linemen, according to Next Gen Stats, only 3 offensive linemen, and all of them were centers, allowed a lower pressure rate than Isaac Seumalo. That's him just in pass protection. I don't know what his numbers are, what Next Gen Stats will say about what he does in the run game, but go check the tape. Go look at it. If you haven't been following, if you're not familiar with his work, just go give it a look. Let's see. The Texans. Mike Garafalo. Was this what y'all were putting in the chat about Blankenship? Shout out to you, E man. I didn't realize what you were saying there, E man. But the Texans have agreed to terms with former Eagles safety Reed Blankenship. It's a 3-year, $24.7 million deal with $16.5 million guaranteed. I am with that. That addresses their other safety position. This defense that was already excellent just got better. I am with it. Let's go. Now, hey, Siraj took. Hey, look, Siraj is thinking exactly what I was about to say. Exactly what I was about to say about this move. I love it. I feel like it's a win for the Texans. It's a win for a defense that we already admire and respect. But this $16.5 million guaranteed, this $24.75 million overall over these 3 years. Could that not have gone to the Isaac Seumalo fund? Could that not have gone to the Isaac Seumalo fund? What y'all think? And look, that's probably a lazy way of looking at it. Probably not a responsible way to couch it. But it is hard not to look at the numbers, look at the needs, look at what you got and what you didn't, and feel like, man, if I'm gonna spend, if my team is gonna spend close to $25 million on a player, if they're gonna guarantee $16.5 million to a player, they can't just forward that to a dude with that addresses a more specific need. Can't just do that. What did we say was the guarantee? I just had it up, and now I have gotten myself all over the place. I guess we don't have a guarantee. That was right. We didn't have a guarantee. With $31.5 million for Isaac Seumalo, 24.75 for safety Reed Blankenship. I'm with it, man. I love the idea of bringing in Reed Blankenship. Now we ain't got to ponder on what they gonna do with that other safety spot. We can kill that conversation. We get to talk about just what Reed Blankenship is gonna bring to the table. I'm with that. I'm with that. I'm with not having to sit here with the curiosity of what is Jalen Reed gonna be. Is MJ Stewart ready to step up into that role after being injured last year? You know, do they have that other safety to be Kalen Bullock's running mate? Answer is a definitive yes. Now, mind you, they did bring in a safety from the Eagles last year, and it didn't work. Okay. Something tells me that CJ Gardner Johnson is a very, very unique character, and that Reed Blankenship is not going to give you nearly the type of problems or the types of issues. And Adriana, you mentioned it too. Or I'm sorry, that's Adrian Abarca. My bad, Adrian. I got you, bro. Appreciate y'all for looking out. But dead that concern of who's going to be the other safety, and I don't think you're going to have any of the culture fit concerns that ended up existing last year with their previous acquisition of a former Eagles defensive back. I'm with it. Would have liked to have had Isaac Seumalo. Came on this podcast, came on this live, optimistic, talking about, man, ain't nobody signed Isaac Seumalo yet. Texans still in the game, baby. They still in the mix. Let's go. 50 minutes into it, Isaac Seumalo is off the board. But you got Reed Blankenship. So let's not quibble with that, right? Let's not quibble with the idea of adding good players to the team. Reed Blankenship, feel like he's been in the league forever, but he's only 27, went undrafted in 2022. I'm with this. How y'all feeling? Let's see. Dre says, I like the signing, just think the emphasis should be interior offensive line focus. I agree with you. I do just want to push back, Dre, and say that just because they signed, and because I'm with you, right? But just because they signed a safety, this is basically my immediate reaction. Like, damn, they gave that money to Reed Blankenship. They couldn't have gave it to Isaac Seumalo. I'd legitimately feel that way. But we got to keep in mind that just because they gave this money to this guy doesn't mean that it didn't try to get money to that guy and it didn't work. We don't know. I don't know, at least. Could have been the case. But I'm with you on the disappointment of, hey, if somebody was going to get north of $24 million today, would have liked for it to have been a center or a guard, as opposed to a safety on a defense that you already feel is really good. The defense gets all the shiny things. You're right, Senior Buble. And why not? They deserve all the shiny things. But Dre is hitting on a point that I think a lot of us are feeling like, yeah, cool, Blankenship, that's cool. Oh, you bringing back Dalton Schultz, that's cool. Oh, you brought back Ed Ingram, and you re-upped Daniil Hunter. All of that is cool. We good with it. But where them interior offensive linemen at? Where they at? Where they at? They're not on the team yet. They're not on the team yet. On the team yet. So where they at? I think that's a fairly legitimate question. So y'all got this where we not freaking out. I ain't telling y'all how to be, but this just the vibe of the B Block podcast. All right, and y'all in here chilling with me. I'm not freaking out. I don't want y'all to freak out, but I want every single one of us to keep an eye open, to hold these jokers accountable, to not let them walk up in here and be like, "Hey guys, we brought Ed Ingram back. We brought Ed Ingram and Trent Brown back. Drafted some rookies. Love Jake Andrews. Let's go." Nah, player. Nah. Reed Blankenship. Man, last year, Kalen Bullock was a little probably I'd say too quick to dub or crown the Texan secondary as the best secondary in the league. But damn, I think because this move is gonna work a lot better than the CJ Gardner Johnson move, just man, from the standpoint that the dude gonna be on the team by the end of the year. And we praying for health. I pray for everyone's health and wealth. But man, you go from Derek Stingley Jr., Reed Blankenship, Kalen Bullock, Kamari Lassiter as your secondary. Brought EJ Speed back at linebacker. I mean, we already know what the defensive line is about. Brought Sheldon Rankins back. Re-upped Daniil Hunter. Waiting on that Will Anderson Jr. extension to hit probably any moment. But we expect that. We anticipate that. Yeah, the defense is lit. The defense is lit. Man, I'm excited about that. That does, maybe because I love this defense so much. I love watching this defense so much, and I do feel like it is a defense that can carry them to a championship. Like I don't think that things need to be clear about this. I want things to be drastically better offensively. I don't want these boring ass offensive games or these drives that look promising but end in field goals, or these short ass 3-and-outs that put the defense out there and force them to win the game for you or keep you in the game. I want the offense to carry its weight. I want the offense to improve. But I do think that even with a comparable level of offensive output that they got last year, if the defense plays at a comparable level that it played at last year, and I think that's a tough thing to even rely on because they were so good. But I think that's a championship formula. It's not what I want to watch. It's not what I would prefer to be the case. It's like I don't love it, but I do love the defense, and I do think that they can win with it, with quarterback play and the offensive style that they were playing in the regular season when they went on that long ass winning streak to end the year. They play like they did there offensively. They go to the Super Bowl. Now, do they beat the Seahawks? I don't think so. But they go to the Super Bowl for the first time in damn Houston history. Because I think they, without wetting the bed offensively against the Patriots, I think they win that game. The Broncos just weren't ready anymore after the injury to Bo Nix. They were there to be had by whoever won that game. That's why I was on KHOU Sunday night, did this with Zach Taratari, and Jason Bristol over at KHOU. We did which team is closest to winning the championship, Texans or Rockets. And this was the reason why I picked the Texans, because I thought that they were closer this past year than the Rockets can even dream of being at any point, whether that's with Kevin Durant or after Kevin Durant is gone with the young core. I don't see them being as close to an NBA Finals as the Texans. But Mike's still muted. Hold on, wait a minute. Mo Beasley says the mic is muted. Can y'all hear me? Y'all let me know. I don't want to just. Could y'all not hear me that whole? I know y'all can hear me. Did listen. I know y'all ain't let me talk for an hour and y'all couldn't hear me. That would have been crazy. But did y'all hear me before? Did anybody hear me before? All right. Got me tripping, man. I was like, man, I'd have wasted a whole hour of my time. What the hell was I talking about? What was I talking about? I don't even remember. Maybe that means it's time to go. It's been an hour anyway, man. This was fun. I appreciate y'all for joining, man. Look, these are fun. Try to keep getting in here. It's a big week. It's a big week, and it just really got started. Hoping to have some guests. I talked to Seth, as y'all know, did radio together the last couple of days, and I think he's gonna come on the show again. Did that several weeks back. It was a hit. So enjoyed having him on. Gonna have him on again. I talked to Landry too. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all, if y'all follow me, y'all probably follow Landry too. The Locker Room with Landry Locker. That brother's so busy, man. Hey, he is getting to it. All right. He gonna be on the podcast at some point as well as my guy. Get him, get Cody Stoops, get Seth Payne. I see if Sean is, I don't know if he's still stuck in Vegas, but Sean Pendergast will be on the program at some point. We'll get Reginald Atula on here at some point because we like to chop it up. I'll see what Ron the Show Hughley is doing. We're gonna have a good time. And I'm really curious how Ron is feeling with Kenneth Walker signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. We didn't even get into a lot of the league-wide stuff. I kept it Texans focused, but man, there is so much to dissect, and just what happened today and what's going to happen in the coming days. I'm real excited about it. I didn't get to the Rockets either because we could have easily talked about. Khalil mentions that the Texans are closer than the Rockets. I couldn't agree with you more, as much as it pains me to say. But y'all watched on Sunday night what happened in San Antonio? I'm gonna do an episode on the Rockets Collective later on in the week, but we will chop it up about that before that Rockets Collective episode comes out. Because there are things to discuss. There was a realization, might call it a sobering moment, watching get blown out, manhandled by just an objectively superior San Antonio Spurs team. Like, there's just no other way to put it. But we'll talk about all that later. I'm with you, Senor Buble. Let's not kill the vibe. Somebody, who was it? Who was it? Khalil talking about that the Texans are closer than the Rockets. Man, it kind of triggered me. Notice, Ace, I don't know, Senor, if you listen to the show today, if you listen to Payne and Pendergast, but you'll notice, as to not kill the vibe, the Rockets never came up. I don't even think they made headlines. We just talk football. Today, illegal tampering, free agency is upon us. There'll be time to talk about the Rockets, but we're not killing the vibe around here, baby. The Texans are still in the game. The Texans are still in the mix. Blue Boy, we got it. We just mentioned it earlier about Reed Blankenship. We with it. We with it. We with it. Some of us are a little curious about if that money could have gone to Isaac Seumalo or an interior offensive lineman, but we digress. We'd like for Reed Blankenship to be able to run block and pass protect. That's not what he does. He's a safety. So we gonna roll with it, man. I appreciate y'all for being here. Make sure y'all are subscribed to the B Block Podcast. You can like, comment, tell a friend. Do all of that, man. I appreciate the support. Appreciate y'all time. Appreciate y'all for being here. And until next time, man, y'all be good.